What's up, everyone, and welcome into episode number 474, where I want to get right into the episode, and that is solely because of the Mo Norris situation. And for anyone that's listening to this episode, or by the time this episode comes out, it's probably going to be very well known of exactly what happened, and it was a very scary situation. He ended up getting seriously injured. They end up having to bring an ambulance out on the field. You saw how impactful this injury was to everyone. Basically, after this injury happened and Mo Norris was taken off the field, there was not another physical play ran. Like, the Atlanta Falcons basically just snapped the ball and no one moved. And after that, they all basically got together in a circle. Some of them prayed. You saw kind of the emotion on the players' faces. You saw the emotion on Dan Campbell. You saw the emotion on the Atlanta Falcons side of things. And it's something that you never want to see. It's something that you never want to have happen to anyone. And it just is a reminder of how physical, how dangerous football can be. And as fans, as players watching that situation is something that you never hope to see for anyone. And it's great that he's going to be okay. The most recent update is that he should be back in a few weeks. Now, obviously, it's a severe concussion, which obviously isn't great long term, but glad that he's going to be overall okay, that he's going to be able to return to football. But just kind of seeing how these teams came together after exactly what happened just shows you that while this game, quote-unquote, is a preseason game, is meaningless, playing football and these players mean a lot to each other. And I think just that support, I think just kind of that reaction, that general reaction from these players really showed that. And it was just a demonstration that was extremely moving in a game that, like I said, didn't really necessarily matter. And then you also have to look at the perspective of when this injury happened. It was 12 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. They basically snapped the ball, didn't even move until 6 minutes left, and then the NFL had to call and say, we're going to suspend this game. And when you have 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, these are guys that are fighting for roster spots. These are guys that, for a lot of them, probably aren't going to make the roster and really needs these minutes to show stuff on film. But instead of doing that, they realized the magnitude of what was going on, and they realized that, hey, like, this isn't worth it. And unfortunately, it's the way that it ended up being, and it could cause some concerns or some missed opportunities for some of these guys. But to these guys and to the fans, what matters most is Mo Norris. And I'm glad that's the way they took it. I'm glad that Mo Norris is going to be okay, that he's going to be able to return. And it was just a very, very scary situation that you never want to see happen. And unfortunately, it was just a weird, unusual play that basically Mo Norris ended up hitting, I believe, Nathan Carter's leg, and then basically gets knocked down. You even saw he had some seizures on the field as well. Very, very scary situation. Like I said, never want to see that. Obviously glad that he is doing well. You saw just the emotion from Dan Campbell after the game in the press conference. The team has basically been updating everyone. Dan Campbell has been involved. You have players that have been in contact with him like Terrion Arnold. It's just great to see, obviously, the support for Mo Norris, but also the support that he's been getting and the support for each other. And it's an unfortunate way to end the game, and I thought it was a game that was pretty competitive. I thought it was a game that the Lions had some very good things that come out of it, some concerning things that had come out of it as well, and it really starts out with the quarterback battle for the backup spot. You have Hendon Hooker getting the start for this game. You kind of knew that after the first game, Hendon was probably going to be starting the first half so he can get time with the second guys, and then you have Kyle Allen starting the second half, getting guys with the third, fourth string guys. Hendon Hooker had some plays that he looked all right in. But when you are fighting for a backup spot and when you haven't looked good in your 2 preseason games, you cannot afford to fumble the ball. And that's exactly what Hendon Hooker did. He fumbled the ball twice. One of the main things when you come to a quarterback is having and being good at protecting the ball. And Hendon Hooker did not do that. And when you have an opportunity in the first half to show the steps that he has taken, and while there were, like I said, some plays in there that you kind of see some progression happen, when you give up the ball, you're not going to be able to play. And that's exactly what Dan Campbell showed, is that after the second fumble, Dan Campbell benched him. Like, Kyle Allen was not supposed to come in the first half of this game. But with about 4 minutes left, Dan benched him and Kyle Allen came in. And Kyle Allen, I thought, looked really good comparatively to what we've seen in the past game. I thought Kyle Allen showed the potential to command the offense. Now, he's not a guy that's going to blow you away by any means. He's not going to be a guy that's going to probably come in and win you a couple of games if Jared Goff does get injured. But Kyle Allen showed presence. He showed the ability to make throws. He showed the ability to move the team down the field. And that's one thing that Hendon Hooker struggled with, is he wasn't able to move the ball down the field. Kyle Allen was able to, and he actually had a really nice throw, a 68-yard throw to Jackson Meeks. Pretty good. While it wasn't the greatest coverage per se, I think there's a little mix-up in the back end. Pretty good throw, and he's going to be a guy that's really going to kind of continue to step up. He also did have a 1-yard touchdown pass to Jackson Meeks a little later on in the game. And then you also had a great throw to Isaac TeSlaa for Isaac TeSlaa's first touchdown in the preseason. He's going to be someone that Lions fans are going to have to continue to watch. Isaac TeSlaa is really, really close, in my opinion, to fighting for first-team reps. And I think the one that has to do with Tim Patrick being obviously injured, maybe not playing a ton, but what Isaac TeSlaa can do. Isaac TeSlaa is so good at using his hands to catch the ball. And I know that's something that anyone listening to might say, well, yeah, like, it's not really that in-depth. But what Isaac TeSlaa does and what he understands, and I think really the touchdown catch really shows that, is he understands where to put his hands. When he caught that touchdown catch against the Falcons, he made sure that his hands were away from the defender. What that allows is allows him to bring in the catch without having him to worry about the defender knocking the ball away or knocking the ball out of his hands. And what we've seen from Isaac TeSlaa is when he's able to get his hands on the ball, he catches it. He's a very trustworthy pass catcher. We've seen it. He has 4 receptions on this preseason. He's a guy that when he gets open and when you get the ball to him, he's going to make a play. And I know a lot of people have been talking about what Brad Holmes said in a recent press conference or interview, is he was asked about a player that he regrets missing on. And his one answer is Puka Nacua. And it sounds like he really liked Puka Nacua. Now, obviously, he didn't draft him, but we've seen what Puka Nacua has done with the Rams. There's a real possibility, not saying there's a guarantee, but there's a real possibility that Isaac TeSlaa could be the Puka Nacua of the Detroit Lions. Now, is he going to be as good as he was? I don't necessarily know. Again, he's not going up against stars, and I think this week is going to be a huge factor in how much he has advanced, because you have the size, you have the ability to get off the line, he has the speed, he has everything there if he wants to succeed in the NFL from day one. And he's been showing that. He's been showing that in camp. He's been showing that in preseason. Now, this week, they go up against the Miami Dolphins. We all know the Miami Dolphins has a pretty good secondary. Can Isaac TeSlaa do what he did in preseason against backups, third strings, and do it against the stars of the Miami Dolphins? if he can do that, I think this hype just continues to build, and I think this hype around Isaac TeSlaa really just started from a couple of these press conferences where Dan Campbell talks about since they put on the pads, Isaac TeSlaa's sack has continued to rise. And I would think that really has to do with, one, again, his ability to catch, but two, his physicality. One thing about the Lions that is really not talked enough about, but the importance of blocking as a wide receiver. In the last game, I believe the 4 highest graded PFF run blockers were all wide receivers, and Isaac TeSlaa was one of them. The whole idea of block to get the rock is something that the Lions really and truly believe in. And I think that is an underrated part of what this Lions offense does. And I think that's an underrated part of the NFL and what wide receivers do as a whole. Because people think about these big plays, these big run plays, but they don't think about the possible backside linebacker or the possible backside safety or maybe even the front side safety that the wide receiver ends up getting a block on. There's a real possibility that if that block doesn't happen, if that wide receiver doesn't give full effort, there's a real possibility those big runs don't happen. Maybe they end up getting 10, 15 yards, but maybe it doesn't turn into 20, 30, 40, 50 yards. Like what Isaac TeSlaa has been showing, what these wide receivers have been showing for the Lions is having that physical run blocking presence so that when they get the opportunity to throw the ball, they take advantage of it, they make their catches. And I think that's one thing Isaac TeSlaa has shown in these preseason games and has just continued to show, especially in this Atlanta Falcons game as well. Outside of the Atlanta Falcons game, you really kind of see these long-term injuries continue to pile up a little bit for the Lions. Now, there obviously are some players that are coming back. Taylor Decker, I believe, in yesterday's camp was back. I believe the starting offensive line was back for the first time. It sounds like they dominated. It sounds like they won basically every single rep that they did, which is obviously a really good sign. You also have the Aiden Hutchinson rule where basically if he gets past the tackle or the guy he's going with, they're just going to continue because Aiden Hutchinson has been that good. And I think a lot of these signs are going to be really good for the Lions long term. Obviously, long-term injuries are never really great. They've had to sign 3 or 4 guys coming in recently. Obviously, a lot of these injuries are depth guys. These guys are kind of fighting for the last roster spots. But you also have some of these guys that could possibly play in the future. And obviously, you don't love these injuries. Obviously, you never want to see any player gets injured. And, yeah, some of these injuries are going to be long-term. Some of these injuries are going to be back sooner than you know it. So that's really kind of it for the Lions on this segment of the podcast. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Mo Norris. Wanted to talk about Kyle Allen, Hendon Hooker, Isaac TeSlaa, and obviously long-term injuries that just continue to pile up for the Lions. I want to talk about 2 other things real quick, though. Michigan, Sherrone Moore basically said today from Tony Garcia on Twitter, basically said he's going to be naming the starting quarterback in game week. That's not necessarily surprising. If it's anything then Bryce Underwood, I would be absolutely shocked. There's actually an episode coming out next that will be the season preview, so definitely tune in to that one. That one's going to be a really fun, long episode, but Michigan State fans will want to tune into that. But I think Bryce Underwood's going to be named that starting quarterback. I would be surprised if that is not the case. Also, the AP poll for college football came out today. Michigan is 14th in the AP poll. Obviously, Michigan State is not in the AP poll whatsoever, which isn't really a surprise. But I think Michigan being 14 is a pretty good spot for them. I'm not really too surprised with that. They have opportunities to obviously move up with probably a win against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's starting quarterback's kind of in an interesting situation as well, so their starting quarterback might not be playing, which might make it a little bit more friendly for Michigan to end up getting the win. They are going to really kind of depends on the whole NCAA investigation. Knowing the NCAA probably won't wrap up before then, and he'll probably end up playing. But Michigan, 14th in the recent AP poll to kind of begin the season in a couple weeks doesn't really surprise me, and I think is a pretty fair ranking overall. The last thing I really wanted to get into before actually one kind of other quick topic at the end with the Detroit Football Club. We got some soccer to talk about. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the Tigers because we all know how the last few series haven't been going very well for the Tigers, but they've been playing a little bit better recently, and that's obviously a great sign. They end up getting a series win over the Angels, which is actually the first time they've won a season series in 15 years against the Angels, which is absolutely crazy. It's been 15 seasons since they've won a season series against the Angels. In one of the starts, Tariq Skubal wasn't necessarily great, but you had a huge 3-run home run from Matt Veal and end up getting a very needed series win against the Angels. And then now they're going up against the White Sox. And obviously the White Sox aren't a great team. I don't think anyone is super surprised by me saying that. They were better than they were last year. They're a scrappy team. They fight. They have pretty good players here and there. Nothing elite, nothing great, but like they have some good talent there. But you really needed to get off to a good start against the White Sox. And I thought that for the most part, the Tigers did that. I thought their pitching was actually pretty good yesterday. Starting pitching bullpen, you have Will Vest end up coming in, getting the save at the end. But outside of that, again, hitting just continues to be a little bit of an issue lately. Now, Spencer Torkelson did get a go-ahead home run in the bottom of the eighth, which ended up being the game-winning run for a 1-1 game, which is crazy to say because if you are in Chicago at the White Sox stadium, you see quite a few home runs and you see quite a few runs scored. This was not one of those situations. I thought pitching for both teams were able to take advantage of that. Now, I do think a little bit had to do with the ump not being necessarily great at calling balls and strikes. But when you had the opportunity, you end up getting a lead in the bottom of the eighth. Then it was like an hour rain delay. Like it was a rain delay that basically came out of nowhere. Kyle Finnegan had the eighth. He looked really good. I thought he was going to come out for the ninth. I think he was expected to come out for the ninth. But then when you have an hour rain delay, you can't have him come out in the ninth. And then, like I said earlier, you had Will Vest just shut the door. And I think Will Vest, if you look at his ERA, it's really kind of interesting because in the 7th, 8th inning, I think it's like a 6 ERA. When it's in the 9th inning, it's like a .8 something. Like, I have no idea why, but Will Vest seemed to strive under really big situations, trying to be the closer. And obviously, when you go out to get a Kyle Finnegan as a closer, he's been really good. He's had 4 appearances. I don't think he's allowed 1 earned run. He actually gave up a hit and then ended up giving out the rest of the 3 guys. So you have Kyle Finnegan. Hopefully, Will Vest just continues to improve. Tyler Holton, I thought, looked better in this game. And then, obviously, you have a couple other games. You have a game tonight that you really just need to continue to win. The lead is up to 6.5. Now, the Guardians do have 3 games on you, so there's a real possibility that if they win those 3 games, it's down to 3.5. Obviously, you really can't factor in that too much, per se. But the Tigers are starting to play better. This is like the first 2-game win streak since like July 30th. Which is crazy to say, but you just need to continue to stack on wins, continue to find ways to win. I think you really need to try to sweep the series against the White Sox. You have a couple other series coming up that you have real possibilities of winning. If you continue to just stack on, continue to win, put pressure on the Guardians, hopefully you can kind of build back this lead a little bit more. But 6.5 is a little bit better than what it was a few days ago, but you just need to continue to figure out ways to win, and hopefully the Guardians just figure out a way to lose because they've been another hot team in the MLB overall. The last thing I really want to talk about, and I kind of did preview this a little bit, at least mention it, but Detroit FC is building a new stadium. And it sounds like it's going to be built in 2027. Sounds like it's going to be ready in 2027. I really haven't talked about Detroit FC very much, but it's awesome to see. Obviously, that support's awesome to see them get a new stadium built. I know they have a ton of passionate fans that watch them. I've never been to a game. Maybe I'll go to a game in the future, but you love to see that support. I think soccer's just continuing to grow. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about them in the future. But yeah, that's really kind of it for this episode. Next episode, like I said earlier, is going to be really fun to listen to. It's a long episode, but it's about 30 minutes each for Michigan and Michigan State. Actually, Michigan's a little bit longer than Michigan State. So if you want to get ready for college football, we're almost there. Definitely tune into that episode. But thank you, everyone, so much for your support. If this is your first episode, if this is your 200th episode, or maybe you've been along the journey since the beginning, I really appreciate it. Please share, subscribe. Please send these to your friends, family. Hopefully you enjoy this episode. Lots to talk about, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Now that football is getting closer, we're going to have a little bit more football content to talk about. So thanks for tuning in, and tune in to the next episode.